In the dead of winter, a teenage boy in ragged clothes is shaking in the cold. He's digging through a trash heap on the street, trying to find moldy scraps of food. A few decades later, that same boy is wearing a golden dragon robe, sitting on the imperial throne, with hundreds of officials kneeling below, waiting for his command. A kid who couldn't even fill his stomach became the ruler of an entire empire. More outrageous than a web novel, right? But here's the real question. How on earth did he pull that off? Hey there, this is Emma Kong. Today we are exploring the true story of Zhu Yuanzhang, the beggar who fought his way from the bottom of society to become the founding emperor of the Ming Dynasty. To understand Zhu Yuanzhang's rise, we have to start from his hell-mode beginning. At 17, a famine hit his hometown. His parents and brothers starved to death one after another. The family was so poor they couldn't even afford a burial plot. With nowhere else to go, Zhu Yuanzhang walked to Huangjue Temple and became a monk just to stay alive. He thought, at least I can get a bowl of rice here. But within 2 years, even the temple ran out of food. So he picked up a cracked begging bowl and stepped onto the road as a wandering beggar monk. Now you might think this is just another tragic sob story. Wrong. This was Zhu Yuanzhang's first day of school at the University of the Streets. Most beggars just wander around, going wherever they can to grab a bite. But Zhu Yuanzhang turned begging into a nationwide field study. He deliberately chose routes where the harvest was better, the families were wealthy, and the people were kind. By day, he begged for food. At night, he slept in ruined temples, replaying everything he had heard during the day. Local customs, gossip about officials, and updates on wars and rebellions. And here's the wild part. Whenever he passed a village school, he would lean on the windowsill and eavesdrop on the lessons. If he met a literate monk or an old scholar, he would volunteer to do chores in exchange for a chance to learn a few characters. Other beggars saved up dry food. He saved up knowledge. He saved up perspective. That's how his world started getting bigger than everyone else. Those begging years also gave him a strange superpower, reading people. When he knelt down with his bowl, he could tell from one look, one sentence, whether someone was truly giving out of kindness or just deliberately making things difficult for him. Whether they were gentle commoners or petty cruel officials. Later, when he joined the Red Turban Army in Haozhou, he was immediately treated with suspicion. After all, he was just a beggar-turned-monk walking into a rebel camp. But Zhu Yuanzhang relied on the skill he had learned at the very bottom, reading people like a book. He stayed humble without being submissive. He showed loyalty without being desperate. And he slowly won them over, so much so that the commander Guo Zixing started to genuinely like him. In the end, Guo Zixing even married his adopted daughter, Lady Ma, to Zhu Yuanzhang. Overnight, the beggar foot soldier became the son-in-law of the commander. And just like that, Zhu Yuanzhang finally had a solid place to stand. After securing his position, Zhu Yuanzhang started building his own startup team. And guess who his core members were? Xu Da, a farmer, Chang Yuchun, a hunter, Li Shanchang, a low-level clerk, and a whole bunch of brothers who had never read a military manual, never commanded troops, and barely knew how war worked. This wasn't an imperial war council. It was a bottom-of-society alliance on a mission to flip the system. And yet, this ragtag team beat warlord after warlord, battle after battle, and clawed their way to the very top of power. Zhu Yuanzhang never fought battles by going head to head. He relied on street smarts and tricks. Take his showdown with Chen Youliang. Chen had more troops, better equipment, and massive warships. His army looked like the premium, fully upgraded version. Zhu Yuanzhang, in comparison, had small boats and far fewer men. On paper, he didn't stand a chance. But Chen Youliang made a fatal mistake. He looked down on a beggar-born commander. Arrogant and stubborn, he ignored his advisors and forced his massive fleet into a narrow channel to crush Zhu Yuanzhang. Zhu saw the opportunity instantly. He launched a plan built on deception and fire. He sent soldiers pretending to defect to lure Chen Youliang into the kill zone. Then he sent out small fire ships packed with explosives, crashing them straight into Chen's giant warships. In seconds, that luxury fleet turned into a sea of fire, and even the way he motivated his troops was very down to earth. He didn't shout fancy slogans like "Fight for all the living beings under heaven" that doesn't fill empty stomach. Instead, he told his soldiers straight up, "Brothers, listen, we win this battle, and we split the land and the loot. No more digging through trash like I did. You're on your own fields, have money in your pocket, get a wife, and live a good life." It was blunt, it was raw, and it hit home. After hearing that, the soldiers went all in, charging forward like their future depended on it. Because it did. Of course, Zhu Yuanzhang didn't win just because he was brilliant. He also had peak-level opponents doing him favors. Besides the stubborn Chen Youliang, there was Zhang Shichen, who controlled the wealthy Jiangsu-Zhejiang region. And this guy was basically a hoarder, sitting on prime territory, but obsessed with pleasure, not expansion. While Zhu Yuanzhang was out there fighting for the world, Zhang Shichen was partying inside his city. By the time he reacted, the city had fallen, and he was captured. He could only watch as Zhu Yuanzhang took everything. In the end, opportunities always go to those who are hungry and prepared, even if they once begged for food. In 1368, Zhu Yuanzhang ascended the throne in Yingtian and founded the Ming Dynasty. A man who had once begged for food as a wandering monk was now sitting on the dragon throne. His rise was something history had never seen before, but becoming emperor didn't erase his roots. Zhu Yuanzhang never let go of the obsessions he carried from the bottom. His daily life as emperor was a wild mix of paranoia and contradiction. First, let's talk about his insane war on corruption. Because he had suffered under corrupt officials as a child, Zhu Yuanzhang absolutely hated corruption. So he made a rule. If an official embezzled more than 60 taels of silver, they would be skinned and stuffed, literally. Their skin would be removed, their body filled with straw, and the straw puppet would be hung outside the government office as a warning to every official who walked by. He also set up a drum of injustice. Any commoner could rush into the palace, beat the drum, and file a complaint directly to him. If an official dared to stop them, that official would be punished too. So, in the Ming Dynasty, being a government official was basically like walking to the execution ground. Every morning before leaving home, they said goodbye to their families and touched their own necks to make sure it was still there. It's no exaggeration to say Zhu Yuanzhang was one of the most ruthless anti-corruption emperors in history. Next, let's talk about his obsession with centralizing power. Zhu Yuanzhang believed the position of prime minister had too much authority and could destabilize the empire. So he simply issued an edict and abolished the position entirely. From that moment on, all government business had to pass through him personally. He woke up at 4 a.m. every day and worked until late at night. He handled hundreds of official reports a day, sometimes skipping meals just to keep up. He basically turned himself into a one-man combo, imperial CEO and overworked civil servant. Other emperors enjoyed luxury and pleasure. Zhu Yuanzhang worked himself to the point of exhaustion. What's funniest is the contrast in his daily life. Even as emperor, Zhu Yuanzhang still kept the frugality he learned as a beggar. Meals were usually just 4 small dishes and 1 soup. If his clothes tore, he had them patched and wore them again. He even ordered the palace concubines to weave their own fabric and make their own clothing. Once, on Empress Ma's birthday, officials expected a grand banquet. But when the dishes arrived, they were just stir-fried radish, stir-fried chives, and tofu soup with greens. Zhu Yuanzhang looked at everyone and said, "This is a good life. None of you are allowed to be wasteful." Zhu Yuanzhang was also a surprisingly soft-hearted husband and father. He listened to Empress Ma on almost everything. When she urged him to execute fewer generals, he didn't always obey, but he did hold back. And after she died, he never appointed another empress. His love for his daughter, Princess Anqing, was even stronger. Her husband, Ouyang Lun, was caught in serious corruption, and by law, he should have been executed immediately. But Zhu Yuanzhang hesitated for a long time. In the end, he ordered the execution, yet he left Princess Anqing a generous pension. Even the harshest ruler could be torn between duty and family. Zhu Yuanzhang's story isn't fascinating just because he went from beggar to emperor. It's fascinating because he was real. He had the toughness and street-smart instinct of someone who had suffered deeply, and the ruthless ambition of a man determined never to be powerless again. He endured hunger, loss, and humiliation, so he understands the struggles of ordinary people, which is why he fought corruption so fiercely and worked harder than anyone else to govern his empire. But he also had weaknesses. He protected his family. He made mistakes. He wrestled with fear and paranoia. His story reminds us that where you start doesn't define where you end up. He rose from hunger, poverty, and humiliation, not because he was lucky, but because he refused to stop fighting. If a starving beggar could build an empire with his own hands, maybe we too have more power than we think. So what do you think of Zhu Yuanzhang? Which part of him do you respect the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. We'll be sharing more fascinating history soon. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next story.